Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar, 5 Marketing Trends to Fuel Your FinTech. Just before we start, just a couple of things. If any of you are having trouble either seeing the presentation or hearing me, just put a message in our webinar chat and one of the guys will try and help you with that. And also just to let you know, we will be recording this session and we'll be sending out a link to everyone that signed up to the webinar so you can view it again as well. But for now, let's get into the presentation. So my name is Rudy Davis and I'm the Senior SEO and Content Manager here at Publicize. I work on both our internal marketing strategies in addition to providing support and advice to a lot of our clients, many of whom are FinTech companies. And before working for Publicize, I spent a number of years working in the insurance industry. So I'm very excited to be hosting this webinar today to discuss FinTech marketing strategies. A bit about Publicize, if you haven't heard of us before. We're a specialist PR agency for startups and growing businesses. We create bespoke PR strategies that enable our clients to win media coverage that gives them the most impactful exposure for their brands. And if you'd like to learn more about this, you can check out the resources, which we'll be sharing in the chat section throughout the webinar. But for now, let's get on with today's webinar. So today we'll be talking about 5 current FinTech marketing trends that you can apply to your FinTech business to help support your growth. Now, we've selected these trends following some market research where we interviewed a number of key players within the FinTech marketing world, which allowed us to get their thoughts on what worked for them. You can also access this research by downloading our ebook titled Finding Your FinTech's Flair, Industry Leaders Share Their Tips for Success. And again, we'll be sharing this link in the chat section of the webinar as the webinar goes on. So the trends that we'll be discussing during the first 30 minutes of today's webinar are the following. Firstly, building trust with customers through owned media content. Secondly, using thought leadership to build legitimacy in the market. Thirdly, making the most of budgets with lean marketing methodologies. Number 4, going beyond just your tech in your messaging, brackets as the big boys are catching up, close brackets. And number 5, building a distinct brand personality. Then once the first half's complete, for the second half, the last half an hour, we'll be joined by 2 guests to get their thoughts on what's worked for them or what hasn't worked for them in the world of FinTech. So we'll be joined by Ryan Caffarena, co-founder of QuePlan.cl, one of Chile's leading insurance aggregator sites, and who has over 6 years of leadership experience in the FinTech industry. And also Santos, UK country manager of Coverontrip Digital Insurance, a leading Spanish-based digital travel insurance provider with experience of working for both large financial companies and startups. Remember, as we go along, if you have any questions on the presentation, any questions that you want to ask either Ryan or Andre, please post them in the webinar chat as we go through, and then we'll go through each of your questions during the second half. But for now, we'll get on with the first part of the presentation, which is going through our findings from our research. So to kick us off then, so unlike traditional financial institutions, FinTech startups obviously enter the market unknown to their audience. This means you have a serious trust deficit compared to traditional financial services companies. And of course, when dealing with people's finances, trust is the most important asset that your company needs to have. This being the case, most FinTechs that we work with and pretty much everyone we interviewed for our research told us that a large part of their marketing effort, particularly during the early days, centered around building trust with their audience. So the first trend we'll be discussing is building trust through owned media content by various means. Now, how exactly do you use owned media content to build trust with your audience? Well, your blog will be the foundation for this, and a consistent number of studies in the US and throughout the world has shown a consistent preference among consumers that they prefer to learn about a company and its products through its blog rather than through advertisements or other means. And there's a few ways you can actually apply this in real life to your FinTech. So firstly, you should be developing personalized content that educates users about how your product can solve some of their existing problems and pain points that they may have with existing traditional financial services products. And a nice example here is with cloud accountancy company FreshBooks, which took part in our research. As you can see here, they provide this type of content marketing on their website with guides entitled things such as, do I really need an accounting package? And an ebook on how to choose the right business accounting software. Now, the next type of theme that emerged in our research when it came to using owned media to build trust and engagement with your audience, you should be focusing on building deeper relationships by providing complementary content that addresses other wants and needs that aren't necessarily specific to your product. So again, using FreshBooks as an example, they provide other content that's aimed towards other pain points that their target market may have, that goes beyond simply what it is that their service actually provides. And in this example here, we see a guide for freelancers to calculate their rate and steps on how businesses can future-proof themselves. This type of content marketing is a great example how companies can build trust and deeper relationships with their audience by showing how well they know their target market along with its wants and needs. The next example is perhaps a bit more applicable to fintechs within the B2B space, although it can still be a useful tactic for B2C fintechs as well. Here you can see an example from end-to-end payment solutions company Paybase, who also took part in our research. They produce a lot of owned media content that provides analysis on their market to show their credentials and expertise to their audience on topics such as online payments in the gig economy and financial crime within marketplaces. And all this type of content helps them set up their stall that they are to be trusted as experts within their industry. But the next example is a very common theme that kind of runs throughout our research and with a lot of the fintechs that we work with. And this is using content and messaging to create transparency around your products. And in this screenshot from a website of another participant in our research, international money transfer company InstaRem, here they're talking about some research they commissioned which showed that most services which advertise zero money transfer fees do in fact apply a large margin within the exchange rate. Whereas InstaRem's kind of content marketing and messaging is all about the transparency that they show their users that yes, we do charge fees, this is the amount, but they're lower than the bigger banks. So don't try and hide the fact they're actually charging their users something, which is very much a trend in fintech, which you don't see so much with financial service providers. And the final example here with owned media is don't forget to use your content for customer success stories, as this is, of course, always a great way to build trust in the eyes of your audience. And a common theme we saw, particularly with B2B fintech companies, as exemplified here by business lender Lendyfield, who also took part in our research, they provide customer success stories in the words of their customers. They let their customers tell their audience why working with Lendyfield was so much beneficial over working with people that are more traditional forms of lending. So those are kind of the key call outs when it comes to using owned media to build trust with your audience. And the second trend follows on very closely from that. So just as important as building trust in the eyes of your audience is being seen as a legitimate player within the industry. And now when it comes to the question of how do you build this legitimacy, a consensus of opinion emerged within our research was through using thought leadership. So what exactly is thought leadership? It's a term that is used a hell of a lot in PR and marketing, but we feel that not everyone that uses it may fully understand what it is. So here at Publicize, how we educate our clients as to kind of what we feel thought leadership is where you leverage the expertise and experience within your business to provide expert insight and answers to the biggest issues facing your industry. Now, the actual form that thought leadership marketing takes can be both internal and external, as you can see from this slide here. So internal forms of thought leadership marketing include mediums such as blog posts that provide things like detailed analysis of events and issues within your industry, and also reports that you publish on topics such as the current state of your industry or new trends. And external thought leadership most often takes the form of guest posts, which are written by members of the business's leadership team, which tackle the large topics within an industry, which are then published on relevant third-party media outlets. And really the big difference in the effectiveness between internal and external thought leadership marketing is that internal content will only reach a business's existing audience, whereas external thought leadership can reach a much wider audience, and specific narratives can be targeted towards specific audiences. So how does that actually work in practice? So a couple of examples here when it comes to fintech thought leadership. So the first example is of a series of internal thought leadership content marketing by another one of the companies that participated in our research, the ID Co. Now, they produce a bi-weekly report on the major developments and news stories within the world of open banking, fintech, and customer experience. And this really enables them to educate the market and be viewed as a source of authority within this emerging sector. And the fact that a lot of these kind of industries are emerging sectors is an important note to make, because there just isn't really that much content within the space at the moment. So if a company can start producing consistent content on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, they can very quickly establish themselves as thought leaders, just because there is, at this moment in time, not that much else there. And going back to this example, as a secondary benefit, it also acts as a lead capture form for this company, as the content is distributed via email. So you have to give them your email and user details to get the report, and then you're then in their lead funnel. And the second example is of external thought leadership in the form of a guest post. And this was a guest post that we wrote on behalf of a point of sale lender fintech client of ours, which was published within an influential industry publication called Payment Source. Now, the piece provides big picture analysis on the state of the POS lending industry, while also forwarding the narrative of the business that wrote it. And then this is then read by the business's target audience who read this publication. So going back to the theory slide, again, this is an example of if you get your thought leadership out onto earned media, onto external publications, you get to reach a far bigger audience, and it's usually an audience that you want to target as you're choosing which publications you're trying to get your guest post into. But an interesting point to note that came out in our research as well, that a lot of fintech stated that they found it a struggle to win earned media coverage. And they thought this is especially the case when going up against the bigger companies that were either pitching to the same outlets or pitching the same types of stories. But very much in our experience as a PR company, there's a growing number of specialist financial services and fintech publications that are really growing in authority within the space, which means the average fintech has quite a large number of options and outlets when it comes to approaching publications to try and win earned media, such as pitching them ideas for guest posts. And here are just some of the publications that we regularly get our fintech clients featured in. Now, for a full list of the main fintech publications and journalist contact details, you can download our fintech PR toolkit via the link that we'll be sharing in the webinar section. Now on to Trend 3. So the biggest marketing challenge reported by pretty much all of the participants in our study, and we get this a lot from a lot of the fintech clients that we work with as well, is just tight marketing budgets. That's especially the case when compared to the deep pockets in the form of larger traditional financial service providers that are competing for the same target market. But a way that many fintechs are countering this challenge is by adopting lean marketing methodologies in order to make the most of their marketing budgets. So firstly, for those not familiar with what lean marketing is, here's a definition. So a marketing methodology adopted from product development that focuses on iterative and shortened campaigns and precise measurements of success. Or as someone else put it much more succinctly, fail early and fail often. This way you save spending money on what doesn't work while constantly getting feedback on how to improve. Well, that's the technical explanation, but how do fintechs actually use lean marketing methodologies in their day-to-day work? Well, again, based on our research and the clients that we work with, here are the top responses to that. So firstly, most respondents stated that they operate within a continual testing mode. This is where they allocate very small budgets to test out strategies, and very soon afterwards precisely measure their effectiveness. So if something proves to be effective, it's very quickly allocated more budget and allowed to scale. Or if it's not effective, it's either altered to try and change course, or it's very quickly abandoned and then something else is tried in its place. The next element of the lean marketing methodology is a streamlined approach to the approval process, the sign-off. And this avoids the the layers of sign-off you usually find at larger financial institutions. And this is a way that a lot of fintechs can be very fleet-footed when it comes to bringing new messaging, bringing new content to market, responding to events in the news, responding to pop culture, responding to seasonality. Whereas at a large bank or a large insurer, you would have to go through many, many layers of sign-off to get most things out there in the public domain. Fintechs are able to get this out with just the bare minimum required for that. And this is often achieved by granting marketing teams a large amount of delegated sign-off authority, where heads of marketing can approve most things without the need to take it higher. However, of course, a point to note is compliance, which all participants said was something that requires constant attention when it comes to marketing communications to ensure there are no breaches. So the message we kind of got there was they try and be as fleet of foot as possible when it comes to sign off and getting content out. But of course, the one thing they have to adhere to is whatever their compliance regime is. Next up is developing minimum viable campaigns. Now, this is similar to the concept of the minimum viable product in software design, where you go to market with your minimum product and then scale it rather than waiting until it's completed to then launch. So when applied to marketing, this means developing small marketing campaigns, but ensuring that they'll give you the minimum amount of data required to then make informed analysis. This ensures that every campaign will produce sufficient data to then enable you to analyze and iterate. For example, if you're an insurance broker bidding on Google AdWords, you would need to first determine how long you would need to run the campaign to generate sufficient data to then make informed analysis. And then from that point on, you can then start iterating the campaign. And lastly, when it comes to lean marketing, is assigning each campaign you run to a champion. This ensures that there's always the resource and clearly identified responsibility to manage and analyze every iteration of every campaign. Ultimately, if you don't have the resource available to analyze the data after each minimum viable campaign and then iterate, you risk wasting money. Now, going back to the previous example, if you don't have someone lined up to analyze Google AdWords performance after the minimum viable campaign time limit, say you ran it for a week, you wanted to see what the impact was after a week, then analyze and iterate. If there isn't someone lined up to do that, you simply risk wasting your money by leaving your ad spend on while the data sits there waiting to be analyzed, and then changes wait to be made off the back of that analysis. So now onto trend 4. This was quite an interesting one for us. It appeared that there was a bit of a consensus of opinion that while the superior tech and UX of fintech products gives them an edge over many traditional financial firms, it seems that these larger players are catching up quickly through either acquisitions or in-house innovation. So what this means for fintech marketers is that just relying on your superior tech and UX in your marketing communications may not be something that will give you the edge forever. So how do you edge against this and ensure you're future-proofing yourself and your mark-ons? Well, there are a number of recurrent themes in our research when it comes to fintech messaging and what resonates best with consumers. Firstly, make your offer as simple as possible. In this respect, less is definitely more. Traditional financial products can appear baffling, especially to younger consumers. So lead messaging and product explanations should be as economical as possible while still getting across your value proposition. The next theme is making the most out of your transparency. Again, we touched on this earlier, and this is another area where most fintechs have a huge advantage over traditional firms. And this involves making your terms and conditions as transparent as possible throughout your customer journey. And the next point is to focus on what other things you're doing differently to the big players, other than just say your superior tech or your user experience. And this could be anything. This could be your mission, your philosophy, how you're doing things in a more responsible and socially beneficial way. Anything that marks you out from the traditional players, you should be making the most of that within your messaging to your consumers. And here are a few examples of kind of companies doing just that participate in our research. So in the first example, international money transfer company InstaRem really succinctly explain its value proposition to consumers in as simple a manner as possible, which is summed up here as price, ease, and rewards. Then in the following example is from blockchain-based invoice processing company Finturi. who kind of call out similar things in their lead messaging, call out the platform security, low cost, speed, and ease. And the theme kind of recurrent throughout all of our research and the clients that we work with is almost the productization of what it is they're selling to consumers, packaging it up as a very easy to understand product, calling out the key points and calling out any major things that consumers need to be aware of, going back to the Instagram example of how their fees work. And this type of communication, this way of speaking about products, is just very different to traditional players, where to just try and understand how some of their products work, you'd have to kind of delve into the terms and conditions and their policy documents. Whereas in these examples, it's all about kind of the productization of what it is you're selling to consumers. And going on to the last trend that we found in our research is around building brand personality. And this is seen as being crucial to helping fintechs differentiate themselves from the traditional players, which again also aligns with our previous point about kind of just looking to go beyond just your tech and your user experience as to how you can stand out from the old school. And our research suggested that not only does this help fintech brands stand out from the competition, it also helps them form deeper connections and relationships with their target market, which in many cases, and particularly when it comes to B2C fintech brands, are millennials. So a few examples here that really call that out. A great example actually saw yesterday on Twitter, which I put into this slide as it was such a good example, is from UK-based digital bank Revolut. And as you can see from the message that this guy has tweeted them, it's like a super informal message about when they started up their Australia branch. It's really lighthearted. And as you can see, this has really resonated with their audience, to the point where people are actually tweeting a letter that's been sent to them saying how much they enjoyed that email, how much they enjoyed that letter, and that they're gonna be sure to read future content that they receive from that company. And another good example, again, is from another UK-based digital bank called Monzo. And once again, the tone is super conversational and lighthearted. There's a joke in there about Greggs that I'm sure anyone that's British watching this will get. And it's super targeted towards their target market, of which many of them are millennials living in London. So again, it's just a great example of getting the tone absolutely spot on for who their target market is. So that is, in a very quick summary, the 5 key trends that we've called out from our research piece. Before we move on to the second part of the webinar and invite our 2 guests in, just to remind you that you can read all of the responses we got by downloading our ebook titled Finding Your Fintech's Flair, Industry Leaders Share Their Tips for Branding Success, for free by clicking on the link that we've shared in the webinar. And in there, you'll find 7 leading marketers at fintech companies throughout the world sharing their knowledge, expertise, and insight on what's worked and what hasn't worked for them. So now it's time for your questions. And I'm delighted to be joined by 2 experts within the fintech industry who will be helping me go through your questions. Firstly is Ryan Kerr Caffarena. Ryan is the co-founder of QuePlan.cl, which is one of Chile's leading insurance aggregator websites. He has over 6 years leadership experience within the fintech industry. And secondly is Andre Santos. Andre is the UK country manager of Coverontrip Digital Insurance, a leading Spanish-based digital travel insurance provider with experience of working for both large financial companies and startups. So while we wait to bring both Andre and Ryan into the webinar, just another quick reminder to anyone listening, if you want to get our thoughts on how we could use PR and build exposure for your brand and help grow your fintech business, then you can sign up for a free consultation via our website by either clicking on a link that's posted within the webinar chat or coming onto our website and requesting a free consultation. And we will be sure to get back to you shortly for anyone that is after a fintech PR consultation. And in the meantime, another reminder that anyone interested in learning more about the techniques we use, you can download our resources. Okay, so Andre and Ryan are just joining us now.
Hello, Rudy. Good afternoon.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, hello.
Hi both. Okay, so firstly, thank you both for taking the time to join me today. Hopefully we'll get through a number of questions that the audience members have asked. But before we go through the audience questions, I just wanted to get the ball rolling by just asking you a couple of questions that I thought of that I'd really like to get your feedback on and your experiences. So Ryan, firstly for you, something I'd like to get your thoughts on is how have you targeted QuePlan's branding towards your target market? And how would you say this is different to the more traditional competitors in your market?
Well, first of all, I would say that there's no magic tricks or rules that apply to all realities. So I will tell my experience, but definitely you have to understand your own business and ecosystem to get your best strategy going. For us, we had something very unique. We were the first website that was comparing health insurance, and we were the first broker to do that. So we had that thing going for us. So we decided to take advantage of that, and we hired a PR agency that helped us put that message on traditional media, and that was our first boost in sales and SEO and reputation and credibility from the people. So what we did differently is that we selected what we thought it was unique about other offline brokers or other salespeople and presented that as our marketing strategy.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. That's a really interesting answer. And Andre, the same to you. How do you describe the type of branding that you've used for Coverontrip when it comes to kind of communicating with your target market, and how this differs from more traditional players within your industry?
Well, Rudy, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation and to publicize. It's really good to be in this conference. So just to give a little bit of background, Coverontrip is an online travel insurance distributor that focus on the millennial generation. And the way we position ourselves and the way we try to differentiate from more established competition is that we try to target our customers via social media. In the UK, it's quite common that the most established players like insurance brokers, big ones like Insurance Go, Columbus Direct, they target other customers via SEM, so pay-per-click, and also on aggregators. Because we are a startup and we don't have their budgets, unfortunately, what we have done was we try a different strategy and we try to build communities. The way we try to build those communities is on two ways. The first one is on social media. So we do paid ads and we work with influencers. We work on segmentation to grow our audience and try to grow that audience and learn from the mistakes and see how we can improve the quality of that audience. And the second part is we have our own travel app, which is called TravelBee. So basically, our objective with this app is not to sell insurance directly at the first instance, but to generate a community that then in the future, when we have enough audience, we can distribute not only our products, but our partners' products. And finally, the way I think we differentiate ourselves from the competition is the way we communicate with the customers and the way we write posts and the tone of voice that we apply to the end customer. We try to be friendly, very close, very proactive, and very responsive to their needs.
Thank you, Andre. That's really interesting insight. The next question I want to ask you guys before I get onto the audience questions. So going back to you, Ryan. So I'd be interested to get your thoughts on what channels have worked particularly well within your marketing mix, and which channels maybe didn't work quite as well as you had expected them to before you started.
Well, to be really honest, we have tried all of them or most of them, and I think it's really important that every business should try many of them and put them on a test. Maybe the channels that work for us won't work as well for others. So I think everyone or every business should try them and then decide what would be their channel mix in terms of marketing. For us, the things that are best performing right now is Google's display. When I say best performance, we actually see how much is our cost per acquisition. So we see which channels are bringing us leads at a lower cost. So maybe you guys can have another metric, but for us, that's the most important. If our campaigns are being, if we're winning money after all. But it's Google Display. We also have native ads that have been working really good. You have platforms such as Taboola. I don't know if you heard about them, but there are many around the world. And also you got Google Gmail, that it's also working really good. And that's basically the ones that we're getting leads at the lowest cost. You also have, at the beginning, we did PR, and that brought us a lot of people, and it was really efficient. We also do Google search, offline marketing, emailing, and all of the other traditional ones that social media. But for us, the ones that I mentioned at the beginning are being most efficient in terms of costs. So I think that everyone should try many of them, put them to the test, and see in your analytics, in your numbers, which are making more sense, which one are not only bringing most clicks, but are actually converting on your site. And that's the thing every business has to calibrate in terms of their own reality.
Absolutely, that's great advice. Thanks, Ryan. And Andre, going back to you, and you said that you'd found social to be a particularly good channel for you. Are there any other kind of particular channels within your marketing mix that you found to be particularly successful, or on the other hand, haven't worked as you first expected?
Yeah, well, I agree with Ryan's comments. I think as a company, you have your strategy and your main channels, but definitely you will need to try them all to see if you have any mistake, you can correct them, and also to see if there is an opportunity that you are missing. So, as I said before, our main objective is to generate communities on social media in our own app, but also we are very keen, and we tried and have had some success with affiliate marketing. So we have a partnership in the UK and in Spain with an affiliate network program, and we are quite heavily present in some platforms like Quidco and Top Cashback, which are main platforms in the UK for vouchers and cashback, which is quite popular amongst our target market, the millennials. As I said before, the UK travel insurance market and the insurance market in general is dominated by aggregators and SAM campaigns, mainly pay-per-click. We have tried our bit in pay-per-click. I know for a fact, because I used to work in a multinational company that works and generates sales. I have my reservations about as a profitable strategy and long-term strategy, especially in the UK market, because it's quite a mature and competitive market. But I'm pretty sure in other markets could be a really good starting point, because let's be honest, people at the beginning, when they search, they go to Google straight away. So I think it will be a good starting point. I completely agree with Brian regarding the cost per acquisition. I think that's a very interesting and very important point, and that's what you should be measuring every day. In terms of more long-term strategies, I think SEO, without a doubt, is quite critical. It's difficult for startups, Rudy, like you said in your presentation as well, to start that strategy, because it's a long-term strategy, and you need to have the funds and the effort. You need to put the effort into it, because it's more a medium-term strategy. I think it's quite important that you build your backlink strategy and be publicized in important industry and end customers publications. And also you need to have someone that understands not only Google but the industry, that writes you content and puts a quality blog post working for you.
Thanks, Andre. That was really interesting points you raised there. Before we go on to the audience questions, just one other question I'd be interested in getting your thoughts on, and that is what you consider to be the biggest marketing challenge or the kind of biggest issue that you face. So Ryan, for yourself, so kind of what's your biggest marketing challenge? Is it something like budget, something like compliance, educating consumers? I mean, what would you say it has been for QuePlan?
Our most difficult marketing challenge right now, it's probably making the products or communicating what we do in a more easy way. We work in a we sell health insurance that could be really difficult to understand. So our marketing is really difficult to make it plain simple for people. Really try, but until now it's been really difficult to make that the content, our website, and all our communication, it's like really easy, especially because there's not a really educated public in terms of insurance in Chile. So you got that base off, and that's probably one of the most difficult things we're facing right now. And when you start, probably your first couple of months or years, you will see nothing but grow, hopefully. But now when you get to a point of near maturity, it's difficult to keep on growing, to keep on looking for ways to optimize, to see what's going on, what new channels can I try. That's probably our the things we're spending time on, thinking where else can we be at, what else can we do to keep on growing, to get more people to know us. So that's it for us.
Okay, that's an interesting point. So you've kind of you had a lot of growth, then as you've established, carrying on that growth is proving harder and harder, or you've got to put more effort into maintaining that growth.
Yes, and actually we think that with our when we enter the market, we actually pulled or increased the bids of many things in the market. Like when we started, some keywords were much cheaper than today, and so we started like this little war in terms of digital channels or digital marketing, in which all of the other insurance companies don't want to lose their position, and they're probably investing more. And it's kind of the cost of getting the same leads is not the same as it was at the beginning.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. That was a really good answer. And Andre, same to you. Is there something that you would consider to be kind of the biggest challenge when it comes to marketing for Coverontrip that you've experienced?
Yes, loads of them, Rudy, to be honest. It's a tough market, but I'm sure that everybody says the same in all industries, but it's the reality. Here I need to break into 2 or 3 different locations, at least. I'll start with UK, which is the one I'm responsible for, and I'm coordinating the project, but also I want to speak about Spain, where we are, and also where we are going to open next, which will be Latin America, mainly Colombia. And I think the three countries represent different challenges. The UK, it's the insurance market of the world, so everybody knows insurance and everybody buys insurance. That is a good thing because people are aware and they don't buy only when it's mandatory. Almost everybody, when they travel, they buy travel insurance, which is quite good for us. But the problem with that is that there is a tough competition and everybody's in this market. So the problem that I face in the UK being a startup is budget. And I think everybody can say that, because the market, as I said before, is mainly on pay-per-click. And like Ryan said, the costs are crazy, especially in the UK. You have policies that you sell for, I don't know, 10, 20 pounds, and the cost per click could be as high as 4 or 5 pounds. So it's really tough market. So in the UK, I would say the budget is one of my main restraints, and also the compliance element is quite fundamental. One of the criteria that I would say it's everywhere, maybe a little bit less in the UK, but it's all around the world, is the mistrust and the lack of transparency that some customers believe that the insurance have. So that's something that the industry in general needs to break, and needs to break that conception. I would say that in Spain and Latin America, they are less mature markets, so the competition is not as high. It has for sure other problems, but I think it will have much room for growth, and people looking for products that don't have so much competition going on. So I would say that the main point there is the opposite to the UK, is maybe that people don't buy as often insurance as they buy in the UK.
Perfect.
Sorry, Andre, you cut out there for a moment. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
where did you lose me?
I think we pretty much got to the end. So yeah, you were saying the problem, everyone in the UK buys insurance. That's a good thing, but it's a very high cost to entry. Whereas in Spain, there's much less awareness around the need for insurance, which is your challenge there.
Yes, and Latin America, what we want to take advantage is that we believe that there is less competition, and also there is a huge element of social media. So we want to take advantage of our experience in social media to try to get advantage on Colombia to our business.
Thanks, Andre.
Yeah,
that was really a kind of thorough answers from the two of you to kind of understand some of the challenges that you face. Just to run through the questions we've had from our audience watching them. We've got a few questions to get through. So the first one is from Mark, who asked, should a fintech company go after publicity in industry-specific publications or bigger publications, such as like Forbes or Entrepreneur? So Ryan, as you got experience with using PR and getting some earned media for QuePlan, like what was your strategy when it came to the types of publications and media outlets that you wanted to win publicity in for QuePlan?
Well, we wanted to get our specific target, that is probably like the people that have more money in Chile. Probably like 30% of the people have more money in Chile. They buy this kind of insurance, health insurance. So we thought which newspapers, which radio stations, which TV channels, which online websites did this public look at every day, and we tried to be there. So when we defined our strategy, with our PR agency, we told them that we wanted to be in there. So we finger-picked which traditional media we wanted to appear, and also we asked to be in a lot of online websites, and it didn't matter if they had too much relation to our target, because all of those websites finally gave us a lot of SEO dominance. I mean, so we did a combined strategy with our PR agency, and they helped us to appear in those specific channels. The thing is, to finish my point, why we decided to take a PR agency, because we had something that it was cool, something that we knew media would like and would like to share and put on this kind of channels. It's a really competitive market. To appear in the newspaper or a really cool radio station or TV is difficult. So if you sell shampoo, you have a new shampoo, probably hiring a PR agency won't be the best strategy, because it would be really difficult to put on these traditional channels that you are one of another 100 people that is creating a new shampoo. So I think if you have something cool as a startup, as a fintech, something you know that is people would like to know, that a PR agency would make a lot of sense.
Thanks, Ryan. And that brings me quite nicely actually onto the next question from Sam, which I'll also be interested in getting your thoughts on. And Sam's asked, why do you think so many fintech companies struggle to win earned media? So Ryan, was that your experience? Did you find it difficult, or did your PR company find it difficult to win earned media, or did you actually find it quite easy because your product was quite unique, you're saying?
Well, actually, it was quite easy at the beginning. We had some really quick publications. I think that we were lucky. We also had some things were going on in Chile that the government was talking about making some changes to insurance companies. So we had something to connect with, something that was already going on. So I think we were a bit lucky. But a couple of months on the road, it started getting more difficult because always something appeared that I actually went to TV stations 3 times. Well, I finally got published, but I had 3 times that I was on the set, all ready to go, and I don't know, there was a crash or airplane crash, and they were all the TV station went to see what's going on with that accident, and I was completely turned down. So it's a really competitive channel. You have to be like really interesting. So as I was saying, if you feel that if you're a PR agency and you the same feel that it's going to be a tough one, you're probably going to get some online publications. If you're lucky, some medium newspaper publications, but television, radio, at least that are really competitive.
Thanks, Ryan. That was a really helpful answer. Andre, for the next question, I think this will be one you can provide quite a bit of insight on, is from Trent, and he's asked, how important is social media for fintechs? And he goes on to say, are regular posts and activity as valuable as people say it is?
Well, that's a very good question. Well, for us, it's quite important because it's part of our strategy. I cannot comment on other companies, and I think bigger companies are missing a trick here, because social media is available. I think it will be the channel of the future for every product in general, because let's let people now spend most of the days when they are working, they are on social media as well. When they are at home or leisure, they are on social. I think the companies for us are missing a trick here. The regularity of the posts, I think it depends, but more than regular posts, what I would say is the content and the quality of the post. The meaningful post is better than a regular post. Of course, you cannot be long time without posting, because you want customer mind. When he purchases the product, he thinks about you, so he remembers you. Also, very communication that you have with that customer via chat or other means needs to be close, friendly, and proactive, and always try to give a good customer service with a nice and that's it, I think.
Great, timeless advice. Yeah.
Sorry?
Ryan, sorry, I just said always having a smile on your face is timeless advice.
Yes.
And Ryan, the same to you. How important has social media been, and like your social media activity for QuePlan and building an audience and engaging with your audience? Has it been an important part of your strategy?
Yes, I agree with Andre. In the type of business that we are, that we're a marketplace, we make our sales through our website. In social media, it's a really important part of our strategy. As I was saying, we get leads at a higher price, but it's still profitable for us. So we do keep posting with some consistency, but it's important what Andre said. If you're a B2B business, if you sell to other businesses, probably you can use social media as a sidekick, as a part of your strategy, but it's probably not going to be your strongest channel. So as I was saying in the beginning, in your mix, you have to determine which are going to be your strongest channels and which one you're going to put more money into. And I think today you cannot live, you cannot not have social media. At least you have to create your name for your company, have it created, and be present if someone wants to talk about you about something. Presence is important, even though if you don't see that social networks will be your main channel to market your product.
Okay, thanks for that, Ryan. So the next question I have from Mark, who's asked, what kind of content could fintechs offer that would appeal to millennials? So Andre, I'm going to touch back on the point you made earlier about your market being millennials and the importance of creating content. So have you got some type of advice around how you create content that really engages with your market, really engages with those millennials you're going after?
Yeah. So basically, not only the content, but the products that we try to distribute, this target market, which are the millennials. The things that myself and my team realize is that the two of the things that millennials more and more, the first one is to try and protect their gadgets. So basically, we with those two and the strategy that we built in terms of content and posts is all around that: the need to protect the gadgets, the fun that you are going to have on your trip, but don't forget that you also need to protect the trip, but always trying to get in a positive way, because millennials don't like as well deceptions, and they like transparency and openness to them. So that's what we always try to do, is to create a blog post, that gives them some useful tips, but also that has some kind of protection to their most precious goods. Can be or.
Thanks, Andre.
I want to complement something with something.
Sorry, Ryan. Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt. No, I was thinking about content, and I was trying to remember what we did, and we actually used tools such as Google Trends, Keyword Planner in AdWords, analytics, and all those free tools that can give you insights about what people are searching. So in your specific business, you can look for terms that you think that people might be looking at, and you can see which terms are being looked at the most, and seeing at the same time if those terms are with a purchasing intention. And in that mix, you have to try to fit your content. So, for example, for us, insurance cover, it's a keyword we want to be first at. So, but if the word insurance cover reimbursement is in the sentence, I don't want to be there, because that's not a term with a purchasing intention. So we choose really wisely the keywords we want to appear in, and because we cannot write content about everything, that previous search about which keywords specifically we wanted to avoid. And when you finish your content, when you wrote, I don't know, 4 or 5 paragraphs, you can also use other free tools in which it gives you a scoring about how good in terms of SEO, it's that content prepared for Google, for instance. So it gives you a score like, yeah, for these keywords, for Google, it's going to rank really good. So you can adapt your writing and make it as perfect as possible in terms of getting good SEO.
That's an interesting point, Ryan. So do you approach all of the content that you create on your site as a primary purpose for SEO, or does it have other kind of purposes?
To be honest, till now, it's been all a purpose of SEO. We know it's a good thing to respond to other kind of questions people have related to our business, and it's good. It's good. It also brings you people, and you are the expert on that matter. For us, it's been a matter of time. We're still a small company, so in terms of time, we have make it more priority to write content about terms that will have conversion or purchasing intentions. But I agree that you should write hopefully more than that. But if you want to start with something, you have 3 or 4 articles that are. Yeah, just go. I'm done. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Ryan. There is a small delay. Rudy, just 3 points. Well, 2 points actually, and one I think is one of the questions after that I think is really important as well. The 2 things that I would like to say as well is, not only the content is important, but especially millennials, they like a lot contests. And basically what we do is some contest about, I don't know, who send us the best picture will have a trip for 2 people in France or in Portugal. So that's something that not only help us to grow the community, but also the visibility of Coverontrip so works really well with millennials. The other thing that we see that is working really well, and I hope America works even better, because that's one of our strengths, is to work with influencers. And we see that more and more people, especially, they follow the people that they love. So an influencer puts a post about, we see an increase on sales. So that's another point, not only the content that they write, but who writes and who presents to them. And the third topic, which is, I think it's already in another question, is what type of content works best for us. So the contents work really well. And also every time that I put infographics as well explaining insurance, I get some good response from the public and the community in general, because I received some feedback that they say, look, with you guys, insurance is much more simple.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful insight. Guys, I'm just conscious we've only got about 5 minutes left, so we'll just try and quickly go through the remaining questions as quick as we can. So a question from Teresa, who's asked, what sort of social media channels would you recommend for fintech startups during the early stages? So just very quickly, guys, your thoughts, firstly, Andre, on what channels have worked best for you with social media?
Social media networks have worked best for me?
Yes, correct, yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. For us is without a doubt, and I think Instagram, at the beginning, we start to focus more on Facebook, but now we are seeing more and more that Instagram is the place to be and is the social media that works better for us. And I think, if I'm allowed to say this, Facebook is getting a little bit demographic, and younger generations prefer influencers are, and that's where we are going to focus in the future.
Great, thanks, Andre. I'm just going to stick to the next question as we're a bit short on time. So a question from Craig, who asked, what are the type of publications that you get the best results when it comes to pitching as a fintech startup? So Ryan, going back to you and back to your experience with PR, were there some types of publications that were just much more receptive than others? Did you have no luck pitching to some, but others would always write about you?
I'm not sure I understood correctly the question.
So in your experience with getting media coverage through public relations, did you find that there were certain types of publications that were more receptive and gave you more coverage, whereas other types of publications that you tried to pitch to just weren't interested? Did you kind of find a divide within the media?
Yes, and depending on the media or the channel that you're using specifically, it depends on the content you want to share with them. For example, you have here your financial newspaper, for example, and in there your content is much more industry oriented, much more numeric. You can put some graphs and explain what are your company goals and make it interesting, of course, always. But you have to choose your content depending the channel you're choosing. So you have your financial newspaper. We have our more popular newspaper in which you want to talk to your customer. You want to talk to the normal people. And in there is like, hey, try this website. It's new, it's free, you can save money. And those kind of contents, of course, that the most appeal to more people were perfect for those kind of channels. So we did oriented the content specifically to the newspaper or the TV station or the radio station we were going at. So we knew the audience that was going to be behind that would make sense what they were talking. And specifically the journalists would agree on publishing, because if you go to a financial newspaper and you try to talk about, hey, you can I don't know, I don't know, appeal to other public, it won't be very interesting for them to publish. So you have to understand what their background is and try to create content accordingly.
Great, thank you very much for that answer, Ryan, and thank you both for joining us and providing your insights on kind of how you've approached fintech marketing and what worked and what hasn't worked for you guys. We're at the hour now, so we're going to draw the webinar to a close. There are a couple of questions we didn't get the chance to get through, so we will be replying individually to each of those persons, still awaiting answers. But once again, Andre and Ryan, many thanks for joining us for this webinar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Really nice meeting you.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.